He raced at Concord Motor Speedway, won a pole there. He raced there consistently. He raced primarily at Charlotte in the Sportsman Series. He obviously won the pole for the race that he was killed in. He actually, in February of 1995, was cleared to race in the Goodies Dash Series. There was a possibility he got a ride that did not pan out, but that was super exciting at the time. And I think that he had a fruitful career in front of him had he lived. He would have been very charismatic for a sponsor, I believe. I mean, he did well. He especially in the last 2 or 3 years, he had really had some really good finishes at Charlotte, and I think he was really showing that he had the talent. With more backing, I think he would have been consistently in the top 3 with more backing. And of course, he worked on Winston Cup at the time and Busch Grand National cars as on the pit crew for them, and that was exciting for him. He had done that for many, many, many years. I felt like, of course, I'm biased. I felt like he was a good driver. He always had good instincts. He wanted, the goal was always to win. The goal was always to finish well. I believed that given the right opportunity and the right backing, he would have gone far. Because he was not just a good driver, he was a people person. He was charismatic and could most certainly do very well for a sponsor. And we did. It was kind of funny. We had there were several times, because I was his car owner, that could be a little dicey at times. But I think he was a good driver. I do think he was a good driver. He spent a lot of time on his cars. Mm-hmm. That was how I learned to. I learned a lot about racing and race cars because that's how I spent time with him. His race shop, after we got married and bought our home, his race shop was behind our house. So when he wasn't working or off, pitting for another, at that time, Busch Grand National or Winston Cup car, he was at home working on his cars if he wasn't racing. I had left a doctor's appointment, and I knew I would be arriving late. I was in traffic on Highway 29 from the Speedway, and it was bumper to bumper, which I knew it would be. And people were leaving, and I remember thinking to myself, good gracious, these people look like something terrible, awful has happened. So I made my way through traffic and got on one of the side roads, Moorhead Road, and I made my way onto the Speedway property. And all this time, I had been switching to all 3 of the stations, radio stations that carried the races. Couldn't ever get anything on the radio. Like, it was always a commercial. Nothing was I could never find anything about what was going on at the Speedway. And when I turned on the Speedway property, I got this overwhelming feeling. And I remember this, I don't know how to explain it. It was almost like a voice saying to me, not audible, but a voice saying to me, you don't need to be here because Russell's not here. And I immediately thought, ooh, that was weird. Kind of like chills up and down your spine kind of thing. It was very weird. So made my way back down through the Speedway property, down to the road that goes to the backstretch,
to the gate back there, and I turned up the radio. I only got one of the stations, turned up the radio, and they said that there had been a horrific accident in the Sportsman Division, and one of the drivers, Russell Phillips, had been critically injured and had been taken to Cabarrus Memorial Hospital. And I knew right that minute he was gone. Because having been in the medical field at that point for 6 years, I knew that in Charlotte, we have a level 1 trauma center, and there's a helicopter sitting right outside of the infield care center. And had he been critically injured, they would have flown him to that hospital. And when they took him to this other hospital, there's no way that they would have taken him there. If he was critically injured, there's no way. They would have flown him to the trauma center. And I knew. So after I, in my shock, I drove back through and got around to the tunnel. Traffic was awful, and I stopped one of the security guards, and I just explained that my husband had just been in that accident, and I needed to get to the infield care center, and they stopped traffic, completely stopped traffic, for me to get through the tunnel and get to the infield care center.
I think in the beginning, initially there was some animosity because of so much had been said in the media, and whose fault it was and this kind of stuff. And with time, maturity, and clarity, it was nobody's fault. It was a freak accident that just happened, and I have for Stephen, because I think that he probably lived with a lot that the rest of the world didn't know about, and that makes my heart hurt for him. I have nothing but compassion for him. And I know that he is no longer with us. And it makes my heart hurt to think that he suffered because he was involved in that accident. And I think he probably carried some guilt because he was a part of that accident. And, the guilt didn't lie with him. There should have been no guilt. There was no fault there. It was a freak accident. There was no fault. Should have been laid at anybody's feet. And I hope now that they're both heaven side now, and I'm sure they've had lots of conversations about it, and it's all good. Mm-hmm. Everything's good. But I do know that he did continue to race for a while after that. He actually did win a championship at Greenville Pickens Speedway, which is awesome. But I think that he did have a hard time. It's my understanding. There are other people that he did have a very hard time after that, and I hate that. I really do hate that. Because he should, knowing what I know now, I wish that I had had the opportunity to sit and talk with him and tell him that it wasn't his fault, that he should not feel guilt over it, that it wasn't his fault. It was just something that happens. I think sometimes the media and rumors and things like that play a role in things and how you feel immediately in the moment, that with time and clarity and you learn that things aren't always what they seem. And I think that, he was just involved in what just a racing accident. It was a freak accident. And I hope that at some point he found some peace with it. There was I've seen a lot of talk that they were shocked that they finished the race that Russell was killed in, since his wreck happened fairly early on in the race, that people were shocked that they finished the race. They were shocked that they raced the next day. I was not shocked at all. That was not the first time that's ever happened. And Russell had actually raced both times after a fatality had happened. And what people that don't race, that aren't drivers, don't understand is that they've made commitments to their sponsors. They've gotten sponsors money, and they've made commitments to these people, and they need to race. And there was some question about that race being canceled the next day on Saturday the 7th. I was like, why would you cancel it? They have, if they individually choose not to race, then that's a personal decision. But if they should have the opportunity, because that's what they do. And it's not being disrespectful. It's not. He would have hated it, but he would have done it anyway. That's what they do. And I just think that so many people I have seen online said it was so disrespectful. They couldn't believe that they had raced. They had finished the race. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just part of it. That's just part of it. And I really never one time did I ever feel that it was disrespectful. I never expected them to cancel any of that. He would have never wanted that. Never. He would never have wanted that. For them to cancel those races. Because after that race, it was the end of the series as we knew it.
Mm-hmm.
After that Saturday's race. Because then it went to what did it go to? The Pro Cup series after that. It went to Pro Cup, and they kind of petered out after that. And then most people went to either ARCA, or they went to trucks, or they went back to their short tracks. So, no, I wasn't surprised. I would have been surprised had they canceled those races. I would have been surprised. Because that's not something that you do. That's just, I would have been very surprised had they canceled them. And I'm glad that they didn't. They needed to race. They needed to do what they do. It's their job. A lot of money had been spent. They made commitments to their sponsors, and they needed to fulfill those commitments.
There has been such focus on his injuries and what's true and what's not. And I have seen so many times people say, well, if you'll read Wikipedia, folks, you can put anything you want on Wikipedia. People can tell you that they saw this and they saw that. Why do you care? A person lost their life. In what manner that happened, it really doesn't matter. What matters is somebody lost their life, and it's not for internet fodder. It's not for, conjecture. It is a matter that someone died. Leave it alone. And there's so many forums, as you well know, that is a hot topic. And I'm like, you're making a joke out of someone's death at the expense of their family. And it's hurtful. Even after all these years, it's hurtful. For me, for his family. It's awful to have to deal with that. Do I think that I personally would be in a better place? I don't know that I would have PTSD. I don't know that I would have PTSD, no. I don't understand the fascination behind Russell's injuries. I don't. Mm-hmm. And I would never have, if it had been someone else, I wouldn't understand the fascination behind it. And part of that comes from working 34 plus years in healthcare. You know, I've seen a lot of people die in my time. You know, and it could be from illness, sickness, trauma. It doesn't matter how it happened. It just matters that it happened. And I have never quite understood that fascination. I really don't. And people are cruel. People are cruel. And I've just had to resign myself that, you know, and a lot of my problem has been with the misinformation as well. It's the complete misinformation. Because there's so many posts on Reddit, on all YouTube, all these sites that are so wrong. the information out there is so wrong. And it's like people they just lap it up. Because it's on the internet, it's got to be true.
They would have been better suited off the super speedways. They should have not started there. Let's say that. They would have been better off at Richmond, Martinsville, North Wilkesboro, Rockingham, maybe. Not super speedways. They should have not started there. I think it would have been a better. I think the experience could have been gained before they got up to those speeds. Because I think when you take folks that are used to running late models at short track, and you put them in those cars with those motors in the middle of a super speedway, and they're hitting speeds that they've never before. I think it could be a bad thing, because so many people I had seen throughout the years, people had just made comments about, Sportsman Division, we're here to see all the wrecks. That's not nice. It's not like these were, folks that didn't have any sense. They did. They knew what they were doing, but this was a super speedway where, if you didn't have a great understanding of the track, if you didn't have enough seat time on a super speedway, on one of these big tracks, or get out from under you really fast. Not used to running 3 wide at those speeds. There's a lot to consider there. I think had they started out at smaller tracks, maybe, and then thrown in Charlotte in there after a while on those tracks, like added Charlotte to the schedule, I think it probably would have been a lot better. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been a lot better all the way around. Because now, when anybody talks about the Sportsman Division, the first thing they talk about are the wrecks and the 3 fatalities they had in that. I'm like, but it's so much more than that. All 3 of those drivers, I can speak specifically for Russell, he would not want that division to be known for that. I mean, he took pride in that division. He certainly wouldn't have run in it if he didn't. He wouldn't have wanted to be known as that. A lot of time and money went into those cars. And of course, you know, a lot of the comments come from people that not, you know, they're speculating about how the cars are built and blah, blah, blah. And why things happen the way they did and that sort of thing. But I certainly think that that would have made the difference in that division had they been on smaller tracks. I don't know that they could afford it today. I don't know that it, because of how expensive, like, the cars are now, I don't know that it would be affordable for them now. I don't know that based on like money alone, I don't know that it would even be affordable. He had $30,000 in that car. That was in '95.
Yeah.
I don't think it's affordable. I mean, I don't think that money-wise it's doable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think they could afford it. I think that it just would so be far beyond their reach money-wise that nobody could do it. I just don't think I don't think it's doable anymore. No, things have changed so much now.
Yeah.
Things change so much now, and that's just a thing. And a little known fact: Russell was a hell of a car builder.
Mm.
He was a fabricator by trade. He could have made, you know, a ton of money building them, but that's not where his passion was. I don't think he'd like them.
No. Mm.
I think he would think that the whole thing has strayed so far from its roots. Of course, he was old school when it came to stuff like that. The glitz and the glamour and all that stuff. Yeah, he wasn't the kind of guy. He was more like old school boys that race, that just want to get in their race. He didn't care about the hype, and he didn't care about the famous, and he didn't care about all that. He just wanted to race.